two schools of thought, which is the mare clausum and mare liberum. Mare clausum believe that the marine areas is subject to the dominion of the coastal state. However, it is different from the mare liberum. Later, a written law has been established which provides that in Article 2 of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982, it explained on the coastal state shall have the exclusive jurisdiction over its own territory and internal waters. The jurisdiction has been divided into two kinds of jurisdiction. Firstly, is the exclusive spatial jurisdiction and the limited spatial jurisdiction. For the exclusive spatial jurisdiction, it covers the exclusive jurisdiction of the coastal state over their territorial waters and internal sea. However, the limited spatial jurisdiction, it covers on the limited jurisdiction of the coastal state over their continental shelf, contiguous zone, and exclusive economic zone. However, this spatial jurisdiction does not cover high sea. Article 8 of the Law of the Sea Convention provides that the internal waters is waters on the landward side of the baseline of a territorial sea. Ports are included as one of the part of internal waters. Hence, it falls under the jurisdiction of the coastal state. Naturally, the port state and coastal state shall be regarded as the same entity. There are certain rights that can be enjoyed by the port state or the coastal state. For instance, in Article 25 Clause 2 of the Law of the Sea Convention provides that the port state shall have the power to prescribe conditions for access to their ports. Moving on to the criminal jurisdiction that can be enjoyed by their port state over their own ports. The port state shall have or shall exercise the criminal jurisdiction when it falls under 5 situations, whereby a criminal offence has occurred on board of the ship and is likely to threaten the peace of the port or on the land. Next, there is a request for intervention from the captain of the ship and the consul of the flag state. For the third situation, when the accident occurs, include the non-crew members. Next, when the offence occurred on board of the ship and is of a serious nature, punishable by imprisonment more than few years. And finally, when matter occurred does not concern solely on the internal economy of a foreign ship. Hence, these are the certain rights provided for the coastal state or the port state to exercise their jurisdiction over their own port and over the foreign vessel entering into port.
Generally, coastal state and port state can be considered as a centum, but there is an issue arises whether port state can exercise their jurisdiction at the high sea. Before going further, I would like to discuss about what is high sea and what is exclusive jurisdiction at the high sea. Okay, first, what is high sea? High sea can be generally defined as the areas of the oceans that are not controlled by any country. In Article 86 of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982, which define high seas as all part of the sea which do not fall within the exclusive economic zone, the territorial sea or the internal water of a state, or the archipelagic water of an archipelagic state. The high seas areas consist of the outer limit from 200 miles of exclusive economic zone, including the waters extended or overextended continental shelf areas up to 350 nautical miles from the baseline. The high sea has been predominated by the doctrine of mare liberum since 17th century. It can be seen in the Article 89 of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982, which clearly mentioned that no state may validly purport to subject any part of the high seas. In talking about of the exclusive jurisdiction of the high sea, we can see that a ship which has been granted the nationality by her belonging state can exercise all the freedom which has been laid down in Article 87 of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982, and also can fly their flag state while sailing at the high sea. Every ship and vessels are only allowed to fly one flag state, and the state has the jurisdiction to the ship as long as the ship sail under their flag state, as mentioned in Article 92, Clause 1 of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982. The application of exclusive jurisdiction or toward the flag state can be seen in the Lotus case, where in this case a French mail steamer, which known as Lotus, had collided the Turkish vessel, which known as Bozkurt. As the consequence of the collision, the Turkish vessel, which known as Bozkurt, has sank, and there are 8 out of 18 Turkish people died. French mail steamer captain, which known as Demon, has been charged for manslaughter in Turkish court, and he has been sentenced to 18 days in jail and fine. However, France argues that the trial cannot be held at Turkey since Turkey has no jurisdiction over Lotus, which belongs to France. The judge has stated that vessels on high sea are subject to no authority except the state whose flag they fly.
However, there are few exceptions which allow the port state to exercise their jurisdiction on the high sea, but it only limited to few types of situations which had been laid down under Law of the Sea Convention 1982. The first situation was when there is slave trade in the high sea. Slave trade can be simply understood as human trafficking for the purpose of forced labor, received subhuman treatment, and had been coerced under threat of physical violence. There is a provision under Article 110, Clause 1, Clause B of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982, which provide that the freedom of a vessel's navigation on the high seas are not subjected to interference from a non-flag state, except in the situation where the ship is engaged in the slave trade. So, these provisions provide that the port state have been given the rights of visit when there is a case of slave trade in the high sea. However, it is subjected to few circumstances which had been laid down under Article 99 of Law of the Sea Convention 1982, which provide only flag state can proceed to seize the ship and arrest those on board. So, we can be understand that Article 110, Clause 1, Clause B of the same convention just provide the rights of the port state to visit the ship. More than that, only the flag state have the power to do it, such as to seize and to arrest. However, it is also subjected to another circumstances which had been laid down under Article 110 Clause 2 of the same convention, which provide that the port state only by virtue of their warship can exercise the jurisdiction, but only up to verify the ship's right to fly its flags to this end. Other than that, the port state also may send a boat under the command of an officer to the suspected ship, and if suspicion remains after the documents have been checked, they may proceed to a further examination which must be carried out with all possible consideration. So now let's proceed to another situation, which is piracy. In order to declare that situation is a piracy, there are few elements that need to be fulfilled, and this had been mentioned and had been laid down under Article 101 Clause A of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982. So the first element that had been laid down under Article 101 Clause A of the Law of the Sea Convention was it must be any illegal act of violence or detention or any act of depredation, and it is committed for the purpose of private ends. Next, the second element that had been laid down was it must be done by the crew or the passengers. It must involve 2 ships, and it must be done on the high sea. Hijacking a ship on the high sea by its own crew or passengers does not count as piracy. In the case of Achille Lauro is an Italian ship. So there were 4 members of Palestinian group which known as PLF. They had acted as a passenger and had already boarded in the Achille Lauro. They had hijacked the ships and they demanded for release of the few Palestinians which had been detained in the prison. So in this case, it was held that since the offender had already boarded on the ship, they were declared as the passenger. So there is no act of piracy since it does not involve two ships. So in the case of piracy, the port state may seize the pirate ship or aircraft or ship which had been taken by piracy and under control of the pirates, and arrest the person and seize the property on board. So this had been mentioned under Article 105 of the Law of the Sea Convention 1982. Other than that, Article 110 of the same convention give rights to the port state to visit and board on the ship which had been involved in piracy. The port state also can proceed to verify the ship right to fly its flag, document search and further inspection. Lastly, the port state can seize the ship which involved in piracy, but it is also subjected to Article 107 of the Law of the Sea Convention, where it can only be done by warship or military aircraft or aircraft that had been identified as being on government service and had been authorized.
So in this next presentation, I will more discuss on other situation under the exception of special jurisdiction. So the next situation is drug trafficking. Drug trafficking is an act of selling, transporting or importing illegal drugs. To overcome this issue, Article 108 of the Law of the Sea Convention has mentioned that all states shall cooperate in suppression of illicit traffic in narcotic drugs by ship in high sea. Flag state also can request the cooperation of other states to suppress this trafficking. So there are few series of convention adopted in order to combat these matters. From those conventions, it can be concluded that in the case of drug trafficking in the high sea, the port state may interfere when the flag state requests cooperation from them. So without the request, the exclusive jurisdiction will remain on the flag state. So the next situation, or we can say as the last situation, is hot pursuit. Hot pursuit can be said as an authorized chase of a foreign vessel by the port state on high sea because of violation of the law committed by the vessel within maritime zone under port state jurisdiction. Article 111 of the same convention has further mentioned about the right of hot pursuit, and they are subject to several requirements. So for the first requirement is hot pursuit can be done when the authority of the port state believe that the ship had violated the law and regulation of the port state. The second one is the pursuit may be taken into action when the ship were within the maritime zone of the port state. The third one, the hot pursuit can be commenced after the visual or auditory signal has been given at a distance which enable it to be recognized by the foreign ship. In few situations, the port state may use the force instead of giving signal. It can be seen in the case of NV Saika. It was held that when the signal does not succeed, the variety of action may be used, including firing of shot or lastly by using force. Other requirement for the right of hot pursuit is the pursuit must be continuous. It means that the pursuit must start from the maritime zone till the high sea, but the right was held as soon as the ship that was pursued enter their own territory or third state's territorial sea. In conclusion, in general, we can say that the port state only has jurisdiction towards their internal water, but by applying the exception under the exclusive jurisdiction, in certain situations, port state also have the right to use their power beyond the high sea. That's all from us. Thank you.